I occasionally attend a church of technology, run by Pastor Alec Watson, a self-proclaimed Midwesterner. His church lives on YouTube under the channel name Technology Connections.
There's good news. We've developed an enormous variety of electric machines, which don't use fuels to function at all.
He sits at his desk like a televangelist from the cable TV days, surrounded by icons of his faith, cameras, TVs, telephones, and lava lamps. If you're into technology, which I am, I enjoy watching him read from the Psalms of heat pumps, VCRs, and dishwashers. But I've noticed Pastor Watson shares a quality with many pastors. He doesn't get out much. Like any good preacher, he'll tell his congregation anything to fill the pews next Sunday. In this case, technology equals energy, and energy equals technology. That's the pastor's trick. Take two concepts and combine them into one lie. Technology does not equal energy, and never will. Technology doesn't run without fuel. My car. The power plants that burn gas to produce my electricity. Airplanes in the sky. Airplanes would fall out of the sky without their fossil fuel. And fuel. It doesn't do anything without technology. The only thing it can do by itself is blow things up in a Fast and Furious movie. And if I may quibble, all solar panels and batteries are manufactured by machines running on fossil fuels, from the excavator trucks to the metal stampers. Pastor Watson argues that the trend is that solar panels will one day produce more solar panels. But there is no trend. It hasn't happened yet and may never do. Pastor Watson preaches we can live in paradise if we obey the will of God, put solar panels everywhere the sun shines, charge batteries, get in our EVs, and go have lunch with friends. Now, before you write me off as a hater, I believe Pastor Watson's paradise is certainly possible, even desirable. Amen. But right now, if we were to shut off all fossil fuel use, around 7 billion people would die within the decade. We'd have barely a billion left. Where do I get that number? That's how many people we had walking around before we started burning fossil fuels in the 1800s. Let's visit that farmer down the road. Farmers are a lot like God. Hard to argue with them when they control whether you eat. You can win an argument with a farmer, or you can have dinner. Farmers make that an easy, if frustrating, choice. They also understand something pastors don't. The difference between a seed technologically designed by Monsanto and a harvest is you can hold up a seed and call it food, technically speaking, but try living on it. I talked to a farmer. I asked him if he'd ever tried to harvest 500 acres of soybeans in October before the rain comes, with an EV like Pastor Watson's Ionic. He laughed. He needs something he can pump into the tank in 5 minutes, not something that adds 3 tons of weight to his equipment, works for only 2 hours, then needs to charge overnight when he's got a 48-hour weather window. His John Deere S790 combine burns 12 gallons per hour during heavy harvest. In a 10-hour day, that's 120 gallons of diesel, equivalent to around 1,400 kilowatt hours of energy. Pastor Watson's Ionic battery, 77 measly kilowatts per hour. The farmer needs 18 of Pastor Watson's car batteries to run for a day. Probably more to move around all the extra weight of the batteries. Watson's Ionic, it's a toy. All of Pastor Watson's arguments are extrapolated from his experience with electronic toys. The farmer and I both agreed Pastor Watson might be able to survive on a few hundred calories a day sitting in his EV should he try to farm using his Ionic, but we weren't going to try it. Pastor Watson has been preaching the EV gospel since 2015 when he got his first EV. That must have been the year he turned off his brain from what he expected EVs to do and what they've actually done. It's been almost a decade, years, since the Tesla Model 3 was introduced. That's enough time for a kindergartner to reach high school, enough time for 3 presidential terms, enough time to grow a tree. And in all that time, with all of those economies of scale, all the technological progress, all the learning curves and optimized supply chains, Pastor Watson keeps promising EVs still cost at least twice what gasoline cars cost. Pastor Watson says we're at an inflection point, that solar and storage are now cheaper than fossil fuels, that the economics have flipped. But then why do I need a $7,500 tax credit, my money, taken as taxes and given to someone else like Pastor Watson, to make the math almost work? Pastor Watson talks about free energy from the sun like it's a revelation, but the machinery to capture that free energy still costs double what the old machinery costs. You know what hasn't doubled in price? The Nissan Versa. It's gotten cheaper when you account for inflation. So Pastor Watson's promised future, where renewable technology is so cheap it's irresistible, after a decade it hasn't arrived, and many people are realizing it will never come for them. When Pastor Watson bought his Ioniq in 2022, he got a fat tax rebate. You know what the supermarket cashier down the block from him, waiting for the bus, got? Another 4 years of taking the bus. Today, an Ioniq costs around $50,000. A Nissan Versa, which runs on gasoline, about $17,000. If Pastor Watson drives 13,000 miles a year, he'll save $737 a year in fuel costs. For those savings to make up for the price difference, it would take 36 years to break even. Pastor Watson has no guilt about taking your tax dollars. Guilt is for you, driving around that polluting gas car, ruining his air while he drives past you in a car you helped buy. Here's what really gets me. For every person driving an EV, there are around 158 adults around the globe who don't have one. Why don't they have one, Pastor Watson? I'll tell you why. Because you don't want them to build an EV everyone can afford. You want them to build the best EV you can afford. You don't want the government to write a $7,500 check to poor people to buy the cheapest EV. You want a tax rebate for yourself to buy an EV instead of a gasoline car, because unlike most people, you have a choice to buy either. And even if we ignore who pays for it, there's a bigger problem Pastor Watson doesn't mention. Where are the long-haul electric trucks, the trains, the ships, the planes, the raw steel factories, concrete, forging, cranes, backhoes? He's never walked down the road to ask a farmer, hey, how do you actually get this stuff out of the ground and delivered to my front door? Pastor Watson thinks technology runs my car. Again, technology powers nothing. I'll keep going to the gas station. He thinks solar technology creates electricity. Wonderful. But I'm not visiting my local power plant in the middle of a freezing night to tell him to stop burning gas because Pastor Watson says it's creating CO2 in the atmosphere. How about we electrify the combines and the concrete mixers and cargo ships first? Then we'll talk about EVs. Here's the thing Pastor Watson doesn't get. Fossil fuels are concentrated sunlight from millions of years ago. They're a battery that's been charging for millennia. Solar panels are trying to charge a battery in seconds. Fossil fuels compress massive amounts of energy into small volumes, high energy density by weight and volume. Solar energy must be used immediately or stored in batteries, which have much lower energy density than fossil fuels and lose energy in the conversion process. Photovoltaic electricity is fine for your personal car or appliances. It doesn't have the oomph to power our industrial base. It doesn't have the components that become fertilizers and plastics. All it does is drive dreamers around with a touch screen. They do no real work. Zilch. Pastor Watson lives a sheltered life with his techno toys. He's oblivious to how 8 billion people on the earth depend on fossil fuels, for better or worse. He argues that we know how to do solar and batteries, but we also know how to fly people into space. That doesn't mean you'll ever get to go. Knowing how to do something doesn't mean everyone gets to do it. That's a hard reality, Pastor Watson. We know how to do this. We know how to do that. We don't know how to keep 8 billion people alive without fossil fuels. Fact. So yeah, I'll keep listening to Pastor Watson's sermons on YouTube. They're entertaining, educational even. But when it comes to feeding 8 billion people, harvesting 500 acres before the rain comes, keeping the heat on during a freezing night, I'll take the farmer's advice. I'll believe it when I see his equipment running on solar and solar energy joining atoms together for his fertilizer.